How nice to see a full sanctuary here and a full sanctuary next door. How nice to see so many familiar faces and some not so yet familiar faces. In a recent interview with Rabbi Daniel Gordis, Yoni Heilman, CEO of Tamid, a college-based organization that recruits Jews and non-Jewish students to internships in Israel's high-tech industry, shared the following as a way of framing the power of Israelis in the response to post-October 7th. He begins, "Let me take you back for a moment to my basic training, the basic training of an infantry soldier. One of the core experiences is this thing called Masa, which is loosely translated as a march. But really, you put on all your gear and you're running through the night 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 kilometers. And you're carrying something with you. You're carrying all your gear. But more so, an hour and a half before the end, your commander stops you, points at the heaviest soldier and says, 'He's injured.' Now, you have to carry this guy the rest of the way on a stretcher. And the way you do it is you got two guys in front and two guys in the back of the stretcher. The rest of the unit is strung out behind in two lines. And every 30 seconds, there's a rotation. The guys in the back move forward. The guys in line move up to take the back. No one's carrying the stretcher for more than 60 seconds. And then you come over the hill and you see the base and you come through the gate and there's this feeling of euphoria finally being done. Except that same commander, he now wants to make a speech. So now everybody's standing there while this guy talks and talks and talks, and there's four guys holding the stretcher, and there's no more rotations. So somebody suddenly calls out, "Kulam mitachat ha'alunka," everybody under the stretcher. And the whole unit physically gets under that stretcher. And now they can hold him up together. Heilman continues in that metaphor of getting under the stretcher. It's a very common metaphor in Israeli life, not just in army contexts. It's the feeling that I felt on October 7th, he writes. I think many of us felt wanting to get under the stretcher and do something. End quote. Kulam mitachat ha'alunka. What a powerful image. Soldiers holding up their brothers, emphasizing the collective effort, commitment, and willingness to support one another. That is also what we felt back in January when members of this community traveled to Israel for a solidarity mission. We saw strangers who became brothers and sisters, bound by the responsibility of protecting each other, of standing under the stretcher, kulam mitachat ha'alunka, everyone holding the weight of loss and trauma together. When we visited the Israeli Red Cross blood bank, we were told that people stood for 12 hours patiently waiting to give blood. Israelis standing patiently for anything? We were told that lines wound around the block of young nursing women to share their milk with all those infants who lost their mothers to the terror of October 7th. We heard firsthand stories from the organization Brothers and Sisters in Arms, which created the largest civic response to manage the enormous needs of the distraught and despairing Israelis. They created trauma centers, displacement centers. They collected furniture, hygiene kits, electronics, cell phones, clothes. They even opened kindergartens, anything that was needed for those who lost family, homes, community, and most of all, a sense of safety. We all felt that loss following the horrors of October 7th. Jews across the world, and we still feel it. almost 12 months to the day. Reeling from an overwhelming sense of vulnerability, that something in Israel, something vital to its core, has shattered. Zionism, which promised that sovereignty would exempt us from the perils of Jewish history. Yet, when October 7th is called a pogrom, when Houthi rockets can kill in Tel Aviv, when Hezbollah rockets can turn northern Israel Judenrein, when Israel sits on edge, waiting as they did just days ago for the next attack, the implications that the ghosts of Jewish history have returned is unmistakable. Add to this that anti-Semitism is raging through this country in 2024. It feels incomprehensible. The shocking and deplorable actions of college students and university presidents, Hollywood celebrities, and K-12 school boards who speak the vileness of anti-Semitism as they couch their ugly rhetoric in anti-Zionist screeds. We feel a deep sense of insecurity. We are on unsteady ground. We feel betrayed and alone. For many of us, for the first time in our lives, we face fear and apprehension and existential concern for the state of Jews and Jewry itself. But are we surprised? Anti-Semitism, the ever-mutating cancer that morphs to the realities of the day. Right here in America, deep divisions that have fractured our country, claims that elections won or lost depended on our vote, that AIPAC power or the Jews in the media or whatever plots we're fomenting. There is great concern and fear as we approach this election cycle, wondering whether the political, racial, and ideological chasms that divide us are beyond repair. Just as in Israel, we are facing an unfathomable world which pierces our sense of safety and unity. It is almost as if daily, as we read or listen to the news, we are caught in this Shiva-like space, a collective mourning with each new tragedy in Israel. Only recently, those tragic deaths in Jaffa after that horrific terrorist attack, a reminder constantly of our losses, coupled with new revelations in our own country, division, partisanship, violence. It shocks us into paralysis. We are overwhelmed and we are worried. And in these challenging times, what is it that we seek? What is it we need to hold us up, to guide us? It is sanctuary. Sanctuary from the pain, sanctuary from the horror and ugliness, literally a sanctuary, a synagogue, a place to find comfort and familiarity, solace and substance. But even that, this past year, was made difficult for so many of you. Amidst this existential crisis, while dealing with all of the pain and complexities of Israel, America, and our upside-down world, even your synagogue, your grounding spiritual home, could not always deliver the solace and the sanctuary you needed. The changes you've endured, merging our two sacred spaces, our legacy communities into one, all meant to create a vibrant, imaginative future for HAMAKOM, didn't always translate. Even now, perhaps, feeling a sense of loss and even mourning. A space that is unfamiliar to many of you. And even those who know this space feel the changes. An unfamiliar rabbinic voice for some of you right now speaking to you. Instrumental accompaniment for some, different melodies for others. No one is in their old seats. What may have been your makom kavua, your permanent place, is no longer. feeling unsettled, unsure in the very space that should be your grounding, your place, your HAMAKOM. It will take time. Time to assimilate, time to adjust, time to make this HAMAKOM your HAMAKOM. Our personal and communal loss and grief, so vastly different in scale than those we experience in America and as a Jewish people, but existential nonetheless. There is no continuum for grief. A loss is a loss, personal, communal, country, or a people. And this year, you have all grieved for all of it. So how do we go on? How do we heal? How do we move forward? Back to Israel. I can still remember in the midst of the attacks of the first and second intifadas, one of the most remarkable responses by Israelis was in rebuilding quickly the destroyed, bombed-out Pizza Huts, bars, and clubs. And today, as war still rages in the south, in Gaza, and now war underway in the north, as unfathomable as it is, life is returned to the Gaza envelope. Sderot, Kfar Aza, Be'eri have been rebuilt. Kulam mitachat ta'alunka, everybody under the stretcher. That is Israel's response. That is Israel's clarion call. It is a hope in the face of disaster and despair. Possibility in the wake of doom. We reclaim our lives and create normalcy even in the midst of trauma. In Dan Siener's The Genius of Israel, published right before October 7th, he asks, what is it about Israel that makes it such a happy country, that allows it to flourish under the most extreme circumstances? Israel's success, he argues, is rooted in a profound commitment to collective responsibility. Her strength lies in unity, in a willingness to bear the weight of one another's burdens, when everyone, despite inherent differences, still feels and acts like one big family. Take the heroic efforts of Rami Davidan, a soft-spoken father of four and a fuel distributor by trade. A resident of Moshav Patish near the Gaza border, he metamorphosed into a guardian angel who used his knowledge of the local terrain to rescue some 700 young people, 700 young people from Nova who were hiding from Hamas terrorists. He drove repeatedly into life-threatening situations, dodging Hamas bullets, to locate and bring back home shocked revelers who were hiding in ditches, behind and up trees, terrified that the gunmen would find them. He then organized his sons-in-law into an ad hoc first responder unit to receive these terrified carloads of young people, inform their parents that they were safe, and drive them out of the area. And if that wasn't enough, when there was nobody left to save, he used the cover of smoke from gunfire to access the site of the party and quietly gathered and tried to match body parts, covered corpses that lay in indecent positions, moved bodies away from the passage of Israeli tanks, and recited Shema Yisrael over each one. Kulam mitachat ha'alunka. To shoulder the burden, to engage in life-threatening acts of communal love and courage, and most of all, to transform grief into action. This is not just a metaphor for Israel's response to terror. It is a model for how we too can navigate the challenges before us. Imagine the Jewish community in America acting kulam mitachat ha'alunka, focusing on our collective responsibility to each other, which at times flies in the face of the individualism so valued and promoted in our country. But for Jews, we understand Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh Bazeh. We are responsible for one another. It is one of the fundamental tenets of our religion. Is it what draws you back every single year to join in membership at this community when for many of you, you don't need to? Some Jewish institutions have begun this work. Kulam Mitacha Ta'alunka, the ADL, Brandeis Law Center, who's going to be with us in February to fight anti-Semitism on college campuses, Secure Community Network, which is helping Jewish communities share security information, and all of us, as soon as the holiday is over, should take one of the cards on the table when you walked into this building and pick up your Israel bond cards and make a pledge to support immediately the war efforts. And to move from the macro to the micro, I wonder if you can imagine a synagogue, perhaps even HAMAKOM, Kulam Mitachat Ha'alunka, strangers becoming brothers and sisters, bound by the responsibility of caring for each other, of standing together under the stretcher. We take turns carrying the burden, supporting one another, moving forward together. I've already seen this taking root in our community. I saw it twice. First, on the last day of our remaining in two separate homes, when members of Temple Aliyah, along with many from Shomrei Torah, joined together at Aliyah to remove the Torah scrolls from the ark. I saw tears of great sadness welling up in the eyes of so many who had a lifetime of memories, baby namings, b'nai mitzvah, weddings, saying Kaddish in that holy space. And I saw hugs and hand-holding and heard words of hope and recognition that in midst of loss and change is also possibility, creativity, and growth. And I witnessed just that as we joined together in a caravan of cars down Valley Circle, where we erupted in singing and dancing and celebrating as we placed the Torah scrolls in their new HAMAKOM arks. Two diverse and different communities coming together, not as strangers, but kulanu mitacha ta'alunka, all under the stretcher, holding up our shared values and vision and promise for a Jewish future for our children and grandchildren and even great-grandchildren. And then I saw it again in the days and weeks that followed. Members of both former communities with hammers and drills, ladders and laughter, and a spirit of newness, harnessing energy and hopefulness as you built furniture and hung bookcases, merged offices, and created sacred spaces for HAMAKOM to flourish. We are all under the stretcher together. If I can go back for a moment to Israel and Dan Senor's book, The Genius of Israel, he suggests the secret sauce of a country as diverse as Israel is the Hebrew word gibush, meaning cohesion. The glue that holds this radically diverse country together is collective unity. Family might disagree and fight with one another, yet they all sit together for a Shabbat meal. That notion of gibush, cohesion, coupled with shared responsibility is, I believe, our path for success at HAMAKOM. To grow, we have to hold on to our shared burdens and responsibilities, uniting in the face of those adversities that surround us, innovating and collaborating in ways we can only begin to imagine, sharing a sense of communal purpose with everyone getting under the stretcher, lifting ourselves up and opening ourselves up to HAMAKOM as our place, our home, and our connection to the divine. And through our collective commitment and sacred efforts together, through being an active part of our HAMAKOM community and the larger Jewish community, we can extend our reach, extend our stretcher to hold up not only one another, but also to reclaim life and possibility and hope for our community, for our country, for Jews everywhere, and for the state of Israel, our homeland. Shana Tova Umituka. May we do it, and may it be a sweet and peaceful and whole season for all of us.